Do you remember the moment when you first discovered what it is that makes your heart sing? I do. It began at 2 a.m. on a cold, brisk November morning when I was standing in the doorway of the emergency room and I realized my grandma was going to die. Hey, Grandma, how you feeling? Oh, I'm okay, mijo. That's a term of endearment she always called me. I love that. Well then, since you're feeling okay, I guess I should probably tell you, don't let Grandpa see you like this. She quickly looked at me as if to ask, why not? Well, after 9 children, 14 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren, he's probably not going to want to have any more babies if he sees you like this. I must admit, that was not the best joke to tell at the time, but it was a successful one because it made her smile. The exchange my grandmother and I had that moment, it masked a deep love. For it was she and my grandfather who actually raised me from infancy through age 10. I never really wondered why I didn't live with my mom and my stepdad and my brother 3,000 miles away. But my earliest memory is of me hugging my grandmother and then being put on an airplane to live with my mom and stepdad. Then my next strongest memories were moments of my mom and stepdad fighting all the time. That created difficulty sleeping, which made me wake up early most mornings, and it forced me to wonder if my mom had packed all her bags and packed my bags and we were going to be staying in a car. I never felt safe. I always felt alone. I had this feeling of abandonment. Until this day, I still don't know who my real father is. I thought I had a normal childhood until I turned 16. And then that normal childhood idea became slightly unconventional. And then I got to about 22 and I met my wife and her family. I thought, what a mess. But even through all of this, I still had a place to go, an internal connection. And it was with my grandmother. It was a son-to-mother connection that I simply never recognized until after she had died. But it was one that I felt the strongest as I was standing at her deathbed. Until 3, 2, 1. Nothing could be heard but the final beeps of the medical machine that was no longer forcing air through her body. At that moment, I could not think or speak or even breathe. I had the sudden urge to move, but my feet were cemented to the floor. The woman that I lost in my life that day was not just a woman. She was a teacher, a supporter, a parent. She was a strong woman, a nourisher who offered us food every time we entered her kitchen. She loved to cook. Only she wouldn't just offer the food, it was more of a demand to sit and eat and visit. She was my grandma. There is a void that is created during times of death. It changes us. At least that's what I felt. I've heard before that time heals the wounds of death and the memories will dissipate, but I don't believe that to be true. Because quite frankly, my grandmother was the glue that held our entire family together. And the pain of losing her still hurts today. So much so that my grandfather hasn't even taken her voicemail off so that I and other family members can call to hear her voice for comfort. She She isn't there to teach me any longer. She isn't there to give me strength. And she's definitely not there to carry me through. I felt most of the time like I was in a battle with myself. And one night, I fell asleep lost, and I woke up with a clear and constant progression of movement forward. And I realized at that minute that my grandmother inspired me. Her living inspired me. And so that morning, I woke up and realized two things. One, I am here to inspire my children. And two, I don't know when I'm going to die. It could be now, or it could be in 5 years. But I know that when that moment happens, I'm going to make sure that my children know their dad, and my grandchildren know their grandfather. That morning that I woke up, there was this video reel that was literally running through my mind. It was a day in the future where my 12-year-old grandson wanted to ask for help from his grandparents. And so he runs upstairs into his room and he sticks on some technology, and then all of a sudden he goes and asks a question, and his grandparents respond with love. So, I wanted to know how I could create this process. So I started with my Facebook account. I wanted to post positive notes towards my daughters. We all know that there's negativity all over the web, but that's not what I wanted to foster. So every morning I would wake up and I'd post positive things. And then about midday, I'd start getting inspirational quotes. But for every inspirational quote that I would receive, I'd get about maybe 10 negative posts that were all over my Facebook feed. And I started to realize, after I wanted to quit, that what we see on our social media daily, on mine, every Monday and Tuesday were really negative days because people were going back to work. Wednesday was a hump day. Thursday in America was a thirsty Thursday where everybody went to work and then went to drink afterwards to talk about how much they didn't like their workday and their coworkers and their life. Friday and Saturday, pretty simple positive days for me because everybody was happy to get to the weekend. And then on Sunday, it all started over again. I didn't want to live this way. I thought it was a terrible way to live. And so my response for this was that every day was going to be a day to be able to inspire my children. Because I didn't want them to live like this in the future. And so I started posting. And as I posted the positive things, the negative things kept coming in. I felt inundated by the negativity of the world. I wanted to quit. And that's when I looked to my wife, and I told her that. And she immediately looked to me and says, "You can't quit." When I asked her why, she said, "Because Kev, you're inspiring way over and beyond just our children. But I'm not doing this for others. I'm doing this for just us and our children," I told her. And that's when she looked at me just like my grandmother had and said, "Keven, sometimes people are watching and not saying anything, but feeling the same way. Trust me, you are inspiring to others. Don't quit." And then something happened. I started to notice the people on my posts were starting to get positive. The wailers and complainers started to disappear, and the builders continued to build. And that is when I shifted my paradigm in my mind. And I decided that it was no longer going to be social media. It was now going to be called social networking for me. That's when I realized that my group and community were reaching people on a global level. And we were inspiring others with our words and our pictures and our family and values. I believe that through social networking, it has allowed me to have a place to live on forever. Way beyond the photo albums that are no longer sitting on my grandmother's coffee table. I am building a location on social networks where caring can become an addiction, where we can use empathy as a currency to fill the broke wallets of life. It's an absolute shame that my grandmother had to pass away for me to hear what makes my heart sing. But I believe that all of us, through social networking, can build a positive, great place for our children and our grandchildren. And it could be a place for us to live on forever. As long as we can all stop tearing each other down, we need to stay positive. Thank you.